Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to go over the commencement address given by Harrison Butker a few days ago. Harrison Butker is the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs. I knew nothing about this guy before maybe yesterday when I first heard about all the controversy and all the usual suspects losing their minds and calling for cancellations and all that kind of thing. And then I actually, so that everybody was responding to this one particular portion of this commencement address that he gave at Benedictine College, which is a conservative Catholic institution in the state of Kansas, where he was invited to speak. So everyone was just responding to that one particular portion of it, but I wanted to see it in its totality, so I did. It's 20 minutes and 35 seconds long. What I'm going to do here, and I think I'm going to break this up into two parts because I don't want this to get over long. But I'm going to discuss what this speech is about, because this is a really well-worded, well-crafted address given by a man who's obviously got it going on upstairs. I mean, this guy's, in the National Football League, but he's a smart guy. He's not a dumb jock. Well, he's a kicker, so I guess some people would say he's not a jock at all, But anyway, I was incredibly impressed with just the level, the intellectual level of the speech, and the way in which it tied various things together, all on a particular thread, which remained consistent. It was a through line, if you will, throughout the entire speech. And I wanted to say this in particular because, I was online doing what I shouldn't be doing, looking up reactions, from people, and a lot of people were supporting him, but then he also has plenty of detractors out there. And what really got on my nerves were the people who were saying, "Look, I believe, I think I agree with what he's saying, but this wasn't the time or the place for it." And their reasoning was, he's telling these women who just graduated from college that they're no value whatsoever unless they become wives and mothers. First of all, that's not what he's saying. Second of all, the it's neither the time nor the place idea falls by the wayside when you understand the context that this is a speech given by a strongly Catholic man to a strongly Catholic college, which, and not just Catholic. It's not enough to say Catholic, as we'll hear him talk about in a minute these days, but a Catholic institution that that actually wants to be traditionally Catholic, that actually wants to uphold Catholic doctrines and dogma and so forth. And what we'll see here in the if you watch this, watch me go over the speech here, and talk about it. What you're going to see is that there is a theme upholding everything, including the thing that everybody says, "Oh well, this was neither the time or the place." I mean, this is just such a shallow dismissive kind of thing to say, and it doesn't do justice to this guy's speech. This guy's a great speaker. you know, and so let's get started here with Harrison Butker's commencement address to Benedictine College.
I would like to start off by congratulating all of you for successfully making it to this achievement today. I'm sure your high school graduation was not what you had imagined, and most likely neither was your first couple years of college. By making it to this moment through all the adversity thrown your way from COVID, I hope you learned the important lessons that suffering in this life is only temporary. As a group, you witnessed firsthand how bad leaders who don't stay in their lane can have a negative impact on society. It is through this lens that I want to take stock of how we got to where we are and where we want to go as citizens and, yes, as Catholics.
Okay, he begins by saying to the students, I know you've had it rough. And by the way, if you want to just watch the speech without my interruptions, it's linked below. There will be interruptions here. So if you watch this video, that's I sometimes have people watch videos where I'm looking at something and cutting in, and they're saying, why didn't you let him just talk? Why are you interrupting him all the time? Well, because that's what this video is about, okay? But you can watch the straight video itself without any interruptions if you want. Just go below and click on that link. Anyway, he's setting this up with, by saying, you poor students, you probably were denied a proper high school graduation. You were probably denied, the comforting rituals that I had, and that most people just took for granted because of the awful leadership that took over during the time of the lockdown. And he's going to go into greater detail about that in a second. So right off the bat, he's getting right into it. He's not mincing words at all.
One last thing before I begin. I want to be sure to thank President Minnis and the board for their invitation to speak. When President Minnis first reached out a couple of months ago, I had originally said no. You see, last year I gave the commencement address at my alma mater, Georgia Tech, and I felt that one graduation speech was more than enough, especially for someone who isn't a professional speaker. But of course, President Minnis used his gift of persuasion and spoke to the many challenges you all faced throughout the COVID fiasco and how you missed out on so many milestones the rest of us older people have taken for granted.
There you go.
While COVID might have played a large role throughout your formative years, it is not unique. Bad policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues. Things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as a growing support for degenerate cultural values in media, all stem from the pervasiveness of disorder. Our own nation is led by a man who publicly and proudly proclaims his Catholic faith, but at the same time is delusional enough to make the sign of the cross during a pro-abortion rally. He has been so vocal in his support for the murder of innocent babies that I'm sure to many people, it appears that you can be both Catholic and pro-choice.
All right, so notice what he's doing here right from the get-go. He's talking about, terrible policy from people, from public leaders who won't stay in their lanes, who overstep their authority. And he draws all these things together. He's saying, the COVID fiasco and the lockdowns, which never should have happened. That's of a piece with all these other things that he ties together, like abortion and IVF and the approval of cultural degeneracy, and having a president who claims to be a Catholic, but who does the sign of the cross during an abortion rally. That's just immediately what he's drawing attention to are Catholics in public life. He specifically mentions the president. But he's about to talk about some others who just aren't cutting it, who are Catholic in name only. And so to continue.
He is not alone. From the man behind the COVID lockdowns to the people pushing dangerous gender ideologies onto the youth of America, they all have a glaring thing in common. They are Catholic.
Okay, so that's something pretty ballsy for this guy to say. Instead of just saying Catholic pride, I love all Catholics are great. If you're a Catholic, then I'm with you. He's saying no. The people who are pushing the worst things, and he mentions President Biden. He makes reference to Anthony Fauci without mentioning his name, and then he says the people who are pushing gender ideology. I don't know who specifically he's talking about there. I don't know if there's some specific Catholic who's doing that, although I'm sure that there are. I'm sure that there are people who call themselves Catholic or who are culturally Catholic or who embrace the label of Catholic and still push things like that. I'm not sure who he has in mind there, but he's saying, well, as I'll say in a minute, just being Catholic isn't enough.
This is an important reminder that being Catholic alone doesn't cut it. These are the sorts of things we are told in polite society to not bring up. The difficult and unpleasant things. But if we are going to be men and women for this time in history, we need to stop pretending that the Church of Nice is a winning proposition. We must always speak and act in charity, but never mistake charity for cowardice.
Okay, great. The Church of Nice, that's a reference to something that what's his name said, a guy who's now kind of on the outs, who had his own little scandal, the Vortex guy. I can't think of his name right now, but but anyway, he coined this phrase, the Church of Nice, and it certainly, it is apt for people who just don't ever want to rock the boat, don't ever want to mention anything controversial or countercultural, and who just sort of go along to get along. And he's saying, oh, that's not enough. It's not enough to just be Catholic. We have to embrace what the faith is all about and the doctrines that define the faith.
It is safe to say that over the past few years, I've gained quite the reputation for speaking my mind. I never envisioned myself nor wanted to have this sort of a platform, but God has given it to me, so I have no other choice but to embrace it and preach more hard truths about accepting your lane and staying in it. As members of the church founded by Jesus Christ, it is our duty and ultimately privilege to be authentically and unapologetically Catholic. Don't be mistaken, even within the church, people in polite Catholic circles will try to persuade you to remain silent. There even was an award-winning film called Silence, made by a fellow Catholic, wherein one of the main characters, a Jesuit priest, abandoned the church and as an apostate, when he died, is seen grasping a crucifix, quiet and unknown to anyone but God. As a friend of Benedictine College, His Excellency Bishop Robert Barron said in his review of the film, it was exactly what the cultural elite want to see in Christianity: private, hidden away, and harmless.
Okay. Good point made there. Now, the movie he's referencing is, of course, Martin Scorsese's movie Silence, which is based on a novel by a Japanese author who I can't remember the name of right now. But it does end in the way that he says, with the main character renouncing his faith publicly, but still hanging on, to a crucifix under the cloak of the, having adopted the acceptable Japanese way of believing, and how this is sort of saying, or sending a message. If this character is someone that we're supposed to see as relatable or likable, which I don't know whether that's a little bit of a stretch, but I think that Bishop Barron is correct when he says that is what the church's enemies want. They want people just to shut up about their faith. It's okay to have their faith. They should just shut up about it and not talk about the ways in which their faith contradicts, the dogma, the secular dogma of the day. And again, he draws attention to another Catholic, Martin Scorsese, being the director of this movie, which he's making the case for being anti-Catholic. I don't know whether I would say that. Not that I'm, Scorsese's my boy, of course, but I'm not just knee-jerk defending him or anything. I had some problems with that movie myself.
Our Catholic faith has always been countercultural. Our Lord, along with countless followers, were all put to death for their adherence to her teachings. The world around us says that we should keep our beliefs to ourselves whenever they go against the tyranny of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We fear speaking truth because now, unfortunately, truth is in the minority. Congress just passed a bill where stating something as basic as the biblical teaching of who killed Jesus could land you in jail.
Woo! Whoa! Did you just hear that? Did you hear that? He went there. Some of you out there, and you know who you are, who just think, if all of Christianity out there are just Daily Wire people. They're just Christian Zionists everywhere. Listen to that. What he just said. He drew attention to I guess it's the anti-Semitism bill, which I've heard about. I haven't looked into extensively. And that he said what he says, what he implies, without saying it directly, is if you draw attention to that Jews were the ones who killed Christ, that now you're in danger of under this bill, if it passes, if it becomes law, I guess, that you're in danger of seeing some jail time. When all you're doing is it's just you're just reading the Bible and seeing the story that is told in the New Testament. Okay.
But make no mistake,
so that's pretty based.
Before we even attempt to fix any of the issues plaguing society, we must first get our own house in order, and it starts with our leaders. The bishops and priests appointed by God as our spiritual fathers must be rightly ordered.
I love this. I love how he's going after the bishops and the priests, not in a disrespectful way, not saying well, I guess it could be seen as borderline disrespectful. I don't know. We're going to see what he says in a minute, but he's upholding their authority, but he's saying they need to start acting the part that they've been given. They need to start acting like priests and bishops and not be the buffoons that a lot of them are being right now. So, to continue.
There's not enough time today for me to list all the stories of priests and bishops misleading their flocks, but none of us can blame ignorance anymore and just blindly proclaim that that's what Father said. Because sadly, many priests we are looking to for leadership are the same ones who prioritize their hobbies or even photos with their dogs and matching outfits for the parish directory.
I don't know what that's specifically making reference to. A bishop or a priest just wearing the same outfit as his dog and posing for the parish directory, and just being all cutesy. I'm tired of that shit too. I really am.
It's easy for us laymen and women to think that in order for us to be holy, that we must be active in our parish and try to fix it. Yes, we absolutely should be involved in supporting our parishes, but we cannot be the source for our parish priests to lean on to help with their problems. Just as we look at the relationship between a father and his son, so too should we look at the relationship between a priest and his people. It would not be appropriate for me to always be looking to my son for help when it is my job as his father to lead him.
Okay, so again, just note the through line here. The through line, as I've said before, is how to being Catholic, being properly Catholic, being a Catholic who and I know that a lot of people out there watching this are probably not Catholic, but I hope you can still see the importance in how he's addressing these issues as a Catholic. And I think it could, because it could be how anybody in any denomination that has, a lot of problems, that has a lot of wayward parishioners and wayward clergy, who've departed from the doctrines of the faith. That this is a way to call them to task. So yes, he's saying we can't. The priests and the bishops need to figure their shit out. Need to work it out. That's not something for a layman to try to fix for them, because laymen are metaphorically to the clergy the way that a son is to a father, and a father, has a responsibility to get his shit together for the sake of his children, and that's the same. The same goes for the clergy here. He's saying.
St. Jose Maria Escriva states that priests are ordained to serve and should not yield to temptation to imitate lay people, but to be priests through and through. Tragically, so many priests revolve much of their happiness from the adulation they receive from their parishioners, and in searching for this, they let their guard down and become overly familiar. This undue familiarity will prove to be problematic every time, because as my teammate's girlfriend says, familiarity breeds contempt.
Now that was clever. That was a clever reference to Kelsey and to Taylor Swift. His teammate, of course, he's referencing Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift's song, whatever song it is, where she says familiarity breeds contempt, which isn't something which isn't a saying that she made up, isn't a phrase that, or an idiom that she coined or anything, but it's a clever way of making reference to that, to the famous or infamous Kelsey Swift relationship here, and it's very knowing, it's very clever. He does a lot of this. He makes reference to things without specifically, but he leaves it to us to put two and two together a lot of the time. Again, this guy's a very skilled speaker, a very skilled speech writer. I'd like to hear him speak more.
St. Jose Maria continues that some want to see the priest as just another man. That is not so. They want to find in the priest those virtues proper to every Christian, and indeed every honorable man: understanding, justice, a life of work, priestly work in this instance, and good manners. It is not prudent as the laity for us to consume ourselves in becoming amateur theologians so that we can decipher this or that theological teaching, unless, of course, you are a theology major. We must be intentional with our focus on our estate in life and our own vocation. And for most of us, that's as married men and women. Still, we have so many great resources at our fingertips that it doesn't take long to find traditional and timeless teachings that haven't been ambiguously reworded for our times. Plus, there are still many good and holy priests, and it's up to us to seek them out.
Okay, ambiguously reworded for our times, boy. There have been there's a lot of ambiguously worded documents and statements being made by certain Catholic members of the hierarchy right now. But he's not picking fights. He doesn't, he's drawing attention to things that need to be drawn attention to. He's not being overly deferential, but he's not naming. The only name that he's named is Biden, and so far, and hell, he's the president of the United States. So yeah, of course, his name should be named. But when it comes to members of the clergy, he's more withdrawn or more cautious. But he does say, there are holy men out there that we should seek out their counsel.
The chaos of the world is unfortunately reflected in the chaos in our parishes, and sadly, in our cathedrals too. As we saw during the pandemic, too many bishops were not leaders at all. They were motivated by fear of being sued, fear of being removed, fear of being disliked. They showed by their actions, intentional or unintentional, that the sacraments don't actually matter. Because of this, countless people died alone without access to the sacraments, and it's a tragedy we must never forget.
Wow. Oh man, that speaks to me. That really, really, really speaks to me, because I have had a very hard time forgiving the church for just closing down. Just closing down, just being overly deferential to the powers that be, and just saying, okay, we know it's Easter. It was during Easter of 2020. And, you know, all over, including in my home state, they just closed, they just put a lock on the door, didn't let anybody in. And you're supposed to just watch the Easter Mass, you know, on Zoom or whatever, on Skype or on Facebook or whatever. I still think that is a black mark for the church, and I talk about this in my most recent published work, analysis of a 2020 scamdemic, reflections on the 2020 scamdemic. That I thought, just like it was just like the church just. I mean, the sacraments are everything. The sacrament of confession, the Holy Eucharist, receiving the body and blood of Christ, which is the forgiveness of sins. Catholics everywhere were robbed of the sacraments for weeks on end. Some places for months on end, and this was with the connivance of the church in most places, and that is something I just find unconscionable, and I'm so glad that Harrison Butker makes reference to it in this commencement address of his.
As Catholics, we can look to so many examples of heroic shepherds who gave their lives for their people, and ultimately, the church. We cannot buy into the lie that the things we experienced during COVID were appropriate. Over the centuries, there have been great wars, great famines, and yes, even great diseases, all that came with a level of lethality and danger. But in each of those examples, church leaders leaned into their vocations and ensured that their people received the sacraments. Great saints like St. Damien of Malachi, who knew the dangers of his ministry, stayed for 11 years as a spiritual leader to the leper colonies of Hawaii.
Yeah, this guy, the one he's referencing there, that particular saint, worked in a leper colony, worked among lepers, and ended up getting leprosy himself, dying of leprosy himself. But it was important for him that those afflicted with leprosy in this leper colony, that they get the sacrament, that they receive the sacraments. So it was a heroic, self-sacrificial act.
His heroism is looked at today as something set apart and unique, when ideally it should not be unique at all. For as a father loves his child, so a shepherd should love his spiritual children too. Yep. That goes even more so for our bishops, these men who are present-day apostles. Our bishops once had adoring crowds of people kissing their rings and taking in their every word, but now relegate themselves to a position of inconsequential existence. Now, when a bishop of a diocese or the bishops' conference as a whole puts out an important document on this matter or that, nobody even takes a moment to read it, let alone follow it. No. Today, our shepherds are far more concerned with keeping the doors open to the chancery than they are with saying the difficult stuff out loud. It seems that the only time you hear from your bishops is when it's time for the annual appeal.
Yeah. So again, skating right on the edge of sounding disrespectful or maybe a little cheeky here, but I don't think it goes over the edge. I think it's perfectly appropriate for a layman to respectfully call attention when the clergy ain't cutting it, and they ain't cutting it today. And he contrasts this to the past when they were actually performing the roles that were expected of them, and at that time they were greatly admired. But now nobody really pays attention to them because they're not all of them, but too many of them have just become buffoonish, and the kind who would dress dress in matching costumes with their dogs, like he says hilariously earlier for the parish calendar. So anyway, to continue.
Whereas we need our bishops to be vocal about the teachings of the church, setting aside their own personal comfort and embracing their cross. Our bishops are not politicians, but shepherds. So instead of fitting in the world by going along to get along, they too need to stay in their lane and lead. I say all of this not from a place of anger, as we get the leaders we deserve. But this does make me reflect on staying in my lane and focusing on my own vocation and how I can be a better father and husband and live in the world, but not be of it.
Okay, so again, and I think I'm just going to push right through with this. I'm going to go through the whole speech, but instead of dividing this up into separate parts. But again, notice the consistent through line here. He's talking as a Catholic. He's talking to a Catholic college, a Catholic college that's grounded in a traditionalist ethos. So all these people are saying he should read the room. He was reading the room. He was invited there by the president of this college because the president of the college knew that he would make the perfect speaker for them, because he's somebody who very conscientiously lives out his faith. So he was reading the room just fine, and the whole critique. This was neither the time or the place. It is the time and the place, both, because the place is a Catholic university. The time is a commencement address, the graduation of the seniors of this Catholic institution. So it's all of a piece, and it adheres together just extremely well. I can't say enough about just how good of a speaker this guy is, Harrison Butker. He's incredible. To continue.
Focusing on my vocation while praying and fasting for these men will do more for the church than me complaining about her leaders. Because there seems to be so much confusion coming from our leaders, there needs to be concrete examples for people to look to in places like Benedictine, a little Kansas college built high on a bluff above the Missouri River, are showing the world how an ordered, Christ-centered existence is the recipe for success. You need to look no further than the examples all around this campus, where over the past 20 years, enrollment has doubled. Construction and revitalization are a constant part of life, and people, the students, the faculty and staff, are thriving. This didn't happen by chance. In a deliberate movement to embrace traditional Catholic values, Benedictine has gone from just another liberal arts school with nothing to set it apart to a thriving beacon of light and a reminder to us all that when you embrace tradition, success, worldly and spiritual, will follow.
Okay, so again, drawing attention to the fact that the school in recent years made a conscious decision to embrace Catholic tradition, whereas before that, I guess they were just another, Catholic in name only kind of place, and weren't really that special. But now they've now that they've embraced their faith, good things are happening for them.
I am certain the reporters at the AP could not have imagined that their attempt to rebuke and embarrass places and people like those here at Benedictine wouldn't be met with anger, but instead met with excitement and pride. Not the deadly sin sort of pride that has an entire month dedicated to it, but the true God-centered pride that is cooperating with the Holy Ghost to glorify Him.
Okay, so that's his reference to Pride Month. I don't know if he's talked about LGBTQ stuff elsewhere. You know, he makes one reference to pride being a deadly sin and having a whole month given to this deadly sin. That's it. So all the people saying, "Oh, he's so anti-gay," that's the only thing he says, and it's just taking. It's saying that Pride Month it's inappropriate because it's embracing a deadly sin, pride being one of the deadly sins, as if it were good.
Reading that article now shared all over the world, we see that in the complete surrender of self and a turning towards Christ, you will find happiness. Right here in a little town in Kansas, we find many inspiring lay people using their talents. President Minnis, Dr. Swafford, and Dr. Zimmerer are a few great examples right here on this very campus that will keep the light of Christ burning bright for generations to come. Being locked in with your vocation and staying in your lane is going to be the surest way for you to find true happiness and peace in this life. It is essential that we focus on our own state in life, whether that be as a layperson, a priest, or religious. Ladies and gentlemen of the class of 2024, you are sitting at the edge of the rest of your lives. Each of you has the potential to leave a legacy that transcends yourselves and this era of human existence.
So this is where he starts to address the graduating seniors, and this is getting close to the portion of the speech that everybody has heard, and everybody thinks that they just have this guy dead to rights because he obviously said something, really, really misogynistic, and it's not true. It's not true in the least. But let's continue to listen.
In the small ways, by living out your vocation, you will ensure that God's church continues and the world is enlightened by your example. For the ladies present today, congratulations on an amazing accomplishment. You should be proud of all that you have achieved to this point in your young lives. I want to speak directly to you briefly because...
Okay, notice that this is getting to the controversial part, but notice that he says, congratulations to the ladies for, doing what you've done, for excelling, or at least, I don't know if you have to excel to graduate, but for doing what you need to do to graduate from this institution. And so it's not that he's just saying, you women here, you need to just go, you need to stop going to college, you need to go home and get married at age 18 and have, 5 or 6 kids by the time you're 21, or any of the outrageous kinds of things that they were characterizing him as saying. It's not in the least true. Let's continue to listen.
Because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now about to cross this stage and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world.
Okay, so he says some of you will have great careers, but I venture to guess that the thing you're most excited by is getting married and having children. And he's not wrong for this demographic. If you went to Harvard or Yale or University of Texas or I don't know, just some secular university, some secular liberal university, there, and he said something like that, then you could say, hey, read the room, dude. then that would have some merit. But he's saying this to graduating seniors, many of whom are this is an institution where the faculty, and one guesses most of the student body, are conservative in their orientation, theologically speaking, and that means that the women who are going there, some of them are going to go on to other jobs, or to get a degree to become leaders in a field or other, and that's fine. I don't think he says there's anything wrong with that, but a lot of them are there for what they call the MRS degrees, finding a marriageable husband. And there's nothing wrong with that. And he says that's just what he says. That's the thing you're looking the most forward to. I venture to guess, and he's right. He's not misreading the room. He's not saying something where it's not this is not the time or the place to say these kinds of things. In fact, it is. It is the time. It is the place.
I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. I'm on this stage today and able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation. I'm beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school would convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker.
Listen to the applause. That's the line that got applause. It wasn't like people were going, whoa, ooh, what's he doing? Why is he going there? That's the only thing in his speech. I'm sure that there are other things that he said that people liked, but that was the one thing that they liked so much that they gave him an extended applause for it. And there's a lot of women out there who probably were applauding too. And I think it's very, how I'm sensitive to guys who are being overly simpy. But I actually thought this was very sweet, the way that he talks about his wife, and how, he owes everything that he is to her. It wasn't. I didn't think it was simpy. I thought it was actually just a very loving, noble thing for him to say. And yeah, that's the